What if one quiet afternoon, a wealthy man walked back into the school of his childhood, ready to leave only an envelope of money behind, yet instead stumbled upon a little girl whose simple words would shatter his silence, awaken buried memories, and set in motion a chain of events that would change not just her life, but his own forever. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us where you are watching from. If this story moved you, we'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Now, let's jump into the story. Nathan Carter never planned to come back to the place where his childhood began. He had left years ago, carrying only memories of cold winters, secondhand shoes, and the quiet courage of a mother who tried to make everything feel like enough. Now he was a man of wealth, an entrepreneur whose name appeared in business journals. But on this particular afternoon, with a gray sky pressing down and the air sharp with winter, he found himself parking his sleek car in front of the old elementary school. The building had changed, yet not completely. The red bricks were familiar, though a fresh coat of paint on the window frames gave the place a newer look. The playground stretched wider now, filled with brighter swings and slides, but to Nathan, it still carried the same scent of crayons, disinfectant, and memories he had tried to bury. He didn't come for nostalgia. He came with an envelope, heavy with a donation that would support the school for months. There would be no ceremony, no camera flash, no headline about generosity. He wanted it to be quick, silent, and unseen. For him, this was just one more line on a long list of things money could solve, or so he thought. When he stepped inside, the halls echoed with the soft buzz of fluorescent lights. His shoes clicked against the linoleum floor, reminding him of days when his sneakers squeaked in these same halls, worn thin from too much use. At the front desk, a secretary with silver hair and a kind smile looked up as if she recognized him, even though she could not have known. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Just here to see the principal about a donation," Nathan murmured. She nodded and asked him to wait. He sat down on a hard plastic chair that seemed smaller than he remembered. He leaned back, listening as the bell rang and the halls erupted with noise. Doors opened, children poured out, voices bouncing off the walls in a rush of laughter, shouts, and footsteps. 15 minutes later, the envelope had been handed over, and the principal had thanked him with polite words he brushed aside. Nathan made it clear he wanted no recognition, no plaque, no article, no announcement. Just let the money work quietly in the background. He stepped outside, relieved to escape before memories tightened their grip. The winter air hit his face, cool and fresh, and he headed toward his car. But just as he reached the steps, he froze. A small figure sat alone at the edge of the stairs. A little girl, no older than 8 or 9, with tangled blonde hair falling into her eyes and sneakers scuffed beyond repair. Her legs swung back and forth slowly, brushing against the cold cement. She stared at the ground, her shoulders hunched as if she carried a weight too heavy for someone so young. Nathan slowed his pace. He had intended to leave quickly, but something about her stillness stopped him. He recognized that posture, the quiet waiting, the invisible hope for someone to appear who might never come. He cleared his throat softly. "You okay?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she lifted her face, and he saw her eyes. They were too big for her small frame, blue and tired, as if she had seen far more than children should. "I didn't get a Christmas present," she whispered. The words landed like a stone in Nathan's chest. He hadn't expected them. He had come for a simple act of charity, one more donation in a long string of good deeds. But here was a child, voicing something raw, something unfiltered, something that carried him back to his own winters, when his mother struggled to stretch every coin, when presents were a dream and not a guarantee. He stood still, caught between leaving and listening. His hand brushed the pocket where his car keys waited, yet his feet refused to move. The donation he had just given suddenly felt small, almost meaningless compared to the quiet truth spoken by this girl. Around them, the schoolyard hummed with noise. Children shouted as they ran to buses. Parents called out names. Laughter filled the cold air. But on the steps, time seemed to pause, narrowing to the space between one lonely child and one man who had thought he understood the cost of poverty. Nathan took a slow breath. He realized he could walk away and no one would know. The school had its money, the children would have supplies, and his conscience could stay clean. Yet something deep within him resisted. For the first time in years, he felt the echo of the boy he once was, the boy who had waited for gifts that never came, who had pretended not to care, who had promised himself he would never look back. But here he was, standing on the steps of his old school, staring into the eyes of a child whose words refused to let him leave. Nathan Carter stood frozen on the school steps, caught by the honesty of the little girl's words. Her voice had been soft, almost casual, yet it carried a weight that pressed against his chest. He lowered himself onto the step beside her, careful not to startle her. "What did you say?" he asked gently. The girl brushed her messy hair from her face. "I didn't get a Christmas present," she repeated, her tone calm, as if she was sharing a fact rather than a heartbreak. Nathan searched her expression. She didn't look angry or bitter. She looked tired, older than her small frame suggested. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily," she said. Her blue eyes flicked back toward the ground, her legs swinging slowly in her worn sneakers. Nathan nodded, trying to find the right words. "And no one gave you anything? Not even something small?" She shook her head. "Just noodles for dinner. My mom said it was all we could make. My dad lost his job, so things are hard right now." Mom tries to smile, but she cries when she thinks I don't see. Dad just stays quiet. Her words painted a picture sharper than any report or statistic. Poverty wasn't a number on a page. It was this girl's empty hands, her family's silent dinners, and the way her voice cracked when she spoke about her parents. Nathan's throat tightened. He remembered nights when his own mother tried to stretch $1 into a meal, when his father came home too tired to speak, when the walls of their small house seemed to close in with worry. Lily glanced at him suddenly, her gaze piercing. "Do you think Santa only likes kids with money?" The question cut deeper than he expected. He had built empires, signed contracts worth millions, and carried himself with the confidence of success. But this single question from a child made him feel powerless. He swallowed hard. "No," he managed. "I think sometimes adults just have hard times, and it makes things complicated. It's not about being good or bad. Santa doesn't only care about money." Lily tilted her head, considering his words. Then she listed the things she had done over the past year, helping her mother wash dishes, sharing her lunch with a friend, keeping her room clean, saying her prayers. She recited them like proof of her worth, as though goodness might earn her the happiness she longed for. "I try so hard," she whispered, "but nothing changes." Nathan felt the sting of her honesty. She wasn't asking for toys or treats. She was asking if the universe cared, if effort and kindness mattered, if children like her were invisible to the world. Before he could answer, the school door opened. A woman stepped out, a mother, clearly. Her hair was pulled back in a simple knot, her dress neat but worn. Her eyes carried the same quiet exhaustion Nathan remembered from his own childhood. "Lily," she called softly. The girl stood quickly, grabbing her backpack. "That's my mom," she said, her voice both relieved and reluctant. Nathan watched as the woman approached. Her smile was kind, though her face betrayed the weight she carried. "Thank you for keeping her company," she said to Nathan politely. Lily looked back at him once more before taking her mother's hand. Thanks for talking to me. No one ever listens. Those final words stayed with him long after they walked away. He stood there, staring at the empty steps, feeling something stir deep inside, a mixture of ache and memory. He returned to his car, but the comfort of leather seats and polished wood felt hollow. The drive home took him past manicured lawns, holiday decorations still clinging to porches, and stores glowing with sales. But all he saw in his mind were Lily's eyes, full of longing and unanswered questions. When he stepped into his home, silence greeted him. The house was large, filled with the signs of wealth, art on the walls, furniture chosen by designers, shelves stacked with awards. Yet none of it filled the emptiness echoing inside. He wandered into his office and opened a photo album tucked away on a shelf. Pictures of his younger self stared back. A boy with a crooked smile and hand-me-down clothes. A father who looked worn but hopeful. A mother who tried to turn nothing into something on every holiday. One photo caught his eye. A Christmas morning years ago. A dying tree stood in the corner with a single toy car beneath it. He remembered pretending to love the gift, even though it wasn't what he had wished for, because he couldn't bear to add to his mother's sadness. Tears he hadn't felt in years stung his eyes. Lily's voice echoed again. Do you think Santa only likes kids with money? That night, Nathan lay awake, restless. Success had taken him far from the boy he once was, but Lily's truth had reached into that forgotten corner of his heart. He realized something important. Her words were not just her story. They were his reminder. A reminder that wealth means nothing if it cannot answer the quiet, desperate questions of a child. The morning light crept through Nathan Carter's wide windows, but he had barely slept. Lily's voice stayed with him through the night, circling his thoughts like a song he could not silence. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her blue eyes staring back at him, filled with questions no child should ever need to ask. He knew he could not return to his routine, not after hearing her truth. His business meetings, his polished schedules, his endless stream of profits all felt strangely empty now. For years, he had believed that giving money was enough, that a donation here and a charity check there would balance the scales of his success. But Lily had shown him that behind every number was a life, a family, a child. That morning, he drove into the old part of town. Instead of the glittering stores lined with glossy decorations, he walked into a small shop tucked between two quiet buildings. Inside, the shelves held handmade dolls, carved toys, and painted trinkets. Behind the counter stood an elderly woman with gentle eyes and hands worn from years of work. Looking for something special? She asked. Nathan nodded. For a little girl, her name is Lily. She has blonde hair, blue eyes, and more courage than I've ever seen. The woman listened carefully, then walked to a shelf and picked up a doll. Its hair was made of soft yarn, golden and bright. Its embroidered eyes shone blue, and stitched across its tiny pink dress was one word, Lily, written in delicate gold thread. Nathan held the doll in his hands and felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just a toy. It was a symbol. It was proof that someone had seen her, cared for her, remembered her name. The next day, he returned to the school during recess. Children scattered across the playground, shouting and laughing, but Lily sat by herself near the fence. Her sneakers kicked the dirt, her backpack leaning beside her. She looked up, surprised to see him again. "You came back," she said quietly. Nathan knelt down so his eyes met hers. "I talked to Santa," he told her softly. "He made a mistake. He forgot to bring you something special. He asked me to fix it." He held out the doll. Lily gasped. Her small hands reached forward, and she hugged the doll tightly against her chest. Her fingers traced her name, stitched on the dress, as if to make sure it was real. Then, for the first time since he had met her, a wide smile broke across her face. Joy, pure and unguarded, lit her up. "Is this really for me?" she asked. "Yes," Nathan said. "Santa wanted you to have it." She nodded quickly, tears shining in her eyes. "Thank you. You're my first real grown-up friend." The words struck him harder than he expected. He felt something melt away, some layer of distance he had always kept between himself and the world. From then on, he began visiting Lily at school. Sometimes he brought snacks, other times he just listened. She told him her dreams of opening a restaurant with round windows and flowers on the tables, a place where anyone hungry could eat for free. She spoke about her father, Daniel, and how she wished he could work again. She told him about her mother, Grace, who tried to stay strong but carried tired eyes and heavy shoulders. Each time she spoke, Nathan felt both hope and guilt growing inside him. Hope, because this little girl still carried so much light in a world that had given her so little. Guilt, because he knew he was not innocent in her story. One evening, after walking Lily home, he stayed for coffee with her parents. Their house was small, walls lined with fading paint, but it was warm with family love. As they sat at the table, Daniel began to share his story. He had worked at the old warehouse in town for 15 years, until it closed suddenly. When the doors shut, hundreds of jobs disappeared overnight. Daniel was one of them. Nathan felt his chest tighten. He knew that warehouse. It was one of his projects. Years ago, he had purchased the land, closed the factory, and made plans to build a hotel. It had been nothing more than numbers on a spreadsheet back then, just another business decision to increase profits. He had never thought about the families behind those numbers, but now he was sitting face to face with one of them. Daniel's exhaustion wasn't just a story. It was the result of his choice. Grace's weary smile wasn't just circumstance. It was the echo of his decision. And Lily's empty Christmas wasn't fate. It was a ripple of his actions. He set down his coffee, his hands trembling slightly. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice low. They looked at him, waiting. "I was the one who closed that warehouse," he confessed. "I thought it was just business. I didn't see the people. I didn't see you." Silence filled the room. Daniel's face was unreadable. Grace looked down at her hands. Lily, clutching her doll, stared at him. "But I want to make it right," Nathan continued. "I don't know how yet, but I promise you. I will try." Lily tilted her head, her voice quiet but steady. "Can you help my dad get a job again?" Nathan felt his throat tighten, but he nodded. "Yes, I'll find a way." That night, as he drove home, he knew his life had reached a turning point. Money alone would not erase the pain he had caused. Only action, only change, only true restoration could do that. For the first time, Nathan understood that redemption is not about giving from a distance. It is about stepping into the lives you once overlooked and rebuilding what was broken. The old warehouse stood silent at the edge of town, its windows dark, its walls covered in dust. For years, it had been nothing more than an empty building, a reminder of jobs lost and families left struggling. Nathan Carter walked through its echoing halls one cold morning, his footsteps stirring up clouds of memory. He remembered spreadsheets, contracts, profit margins. But now he saw something else, the faces of people like Daniel, Grace, and Lily, who had carried the weight of his choices. He stood in the center of the warehouse and realized he could not let it remain a monument to loss. This place had once been alive, with work, with voices, with laughter. It could be alive again, not as another hotel, not as another profit-making machine, but as something that gave back what had been taken. Days turned into weeks as Nathan reached out to the community. At first, the people did not trust him. Many remembered the pain of the closure. They looked at him with suspicion, questioning his sudden change of heart. But he kept returning, kept listening, kept explaining his vision. He wanted to turn the warehouse into a cooperative, a place owned and run by the workers themselves. The idea slowly began to take shape. Daniel stepped forward to help, offering his skills and knowledge from years of experience. Grace joined, her warmth and determination guiding the team. Others followed, hesitant at first, then with growing confidence. Together, they planned something new, a community hub with a bakery, a kitchen, a daycare, and training workshops. It would be more than a workplace. It would be a place of opportunity, of rebuilding, of hope. The transformation wasn't easy. The walls needed repairs, the roof leaked, the floors were worn. But every hammer strike, every brush of paint carried meaning. Men and women who had once lost everything came back with strength in their hands and pride in their eyes. Nathan worked alongside them, not as a boss, but as a partner. He lifted boxes, painted walls, and listened to their stories. With each passing day, the emptiness of the warehouse faded, replaced by the sound of machines humming, ovens baking, and voices rising again in laughter. The opening day arrived 6 months later. The town gathered outside the renovated building, its fresh paint glowing under the morning sun. Balloons swayed in the cold breeze, and the smell of bread drifted from the new bakery. On the stage stood Lily, holding her doll tightly. Her blonde hair caught the light, her smile wide with pride. She gave a simple speech in her small but clear voice. She talked about dreams, about turning sad places into happy ones, and about believing in people, even when things feel hopeless. Her words moved the crowd to silence, then to applause. Many wiped tears from their eyes. For Nathan, it was the most important speech he had ever heard. As the doors opened, people stepped inside, marveling at the change. The bakery displayed warm loaves, the kitchen buzzed with activity, and a corner had been set aside for children to learn and play. It was no longer a warehouse of loss. It was a home for possibility. Nathan looked around and saw faces shining with pride. He saw Daniel working again, his shoulders no longer weighed down by defeat. He saw Grace greeting neighbors with kindness, her eyes no longer tired but alive with energy. And he saw Lily running through the halls with her doll, laughter spilling into the air. He understood then that real wealth was not in his bank accounts or business deals. Real wealth was here, in the lives touched, in the families restored, in the community rebuilt. Months passed, and the cooperative grew stronger. The bakery supplied bread to local stores, the daycare supported families, and training programs helped people find new paths. Every weekend, Nathan visited Lily's family. They shared meals, told stories, and built a bond that felt deeper than friendship. One Sunday evening, as they sat on the porch of the Jameson home, Lily hugged her doll and whispered, "He isn't just a friend anymore. He's family. The kind you choose because they never leave." The words settled in Nathan's heart like a promise. He realized he had been searching for meaning in profits and buildings, when the true meaning of success was right here, in connection, in kindness, in second chances. As the sun set over the neighborhood, laughter drifted through the air. Nathan smiled, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Not the rush of closing a deal, or the pride of owning an empire, but the quiet peace of belonging. He looked at Lily and her family, then out toward the horizon, and thought to himself, sometimes it takes one small voice, one honest truth, to awaken a heart. And sometimes, when you choose to listen, you discover that redemption is not about fixing numbers. It is about healing hearts. And in that moment, Nathan knew his story had changed forever.